What could happen if the Tokyo Olympics get cancelled? CNN, with a little over 2 months until the start of Tokyo Olympics, the possibility of the cancellation looms large over the games. As Japan battles a fourth wave of coronavirus infections and a state of emergency in Tokyo and other prefectures remains in place till the end of the month, there is mounting pressure from health experts, business leaders, and the Japanese public to call off the games. Last week, the Tokyo Medical Practitioners Association, an organization of about 6,000 doctors in Tokyo, penned a letter calling for a cancellation, while a petition which garnered 350,000 signatures in 9 days in support of the cancellation has been submitted to organizers. Also, last week, the CEO of a leading Japanese e-commerce company, Rakuten, said that holding the games amid the pandemic amounts to a suicide mission among the strongest opposition so far, voiced of the business leader. However, the International Olympic Committee, called the IOC, has remained adamant that the Olympics, already postponed by a year amid the pandemic, will be able to get underway on July 23rd. Organizers have released a playbook, the final version of which is expected next month, outlining a series of countermeasures that they say will ensure the games can take place in safe and secure way, even as the thousands of athletes from around the world descend on Tokyo. The Tokyo 2020 cancellation, sports law expert answers the questions surrounding Olympic Games. With the Winter Olympics in Beijing now less than a year away, officials have also said that the games won't be postponed again and that the cancellation will be the likeliest option if it's deemed unsafe to hold the games from the rescheduled start date in July. How would the cancellation come about? In the host city contract, which outlines the legal agreement between the IOC and Tokyo to hosting the games, the IOC is entitled to terminate the contract on the grounds that the safety of participants in the games would be seriously threatened or jeopardized for any reason whatsoever. According to legal expert Jack Anderson, it's likely to be growing pressure on the organizers that the forces a cancellation a political decision rather than a strictly legal one. It's the safety of those athletes which are the primary concern of the IOC, the safety of the Japanese public, the primary concern of the organizing committee, and the Japanese political establishment, which is the key. Anderson, an officer, a professor of law teaching at Melbourne Law School in Australia, tells CNN Sport. And this is not an ordinary one-off event. It's obviously a huge multidisciplinary event across the many different stadia. Demonstrators protest against the Olympics in Tokyo on May 17th. Anderson adds that the termination of the host city contract would see the risks and losses fall largely with the organizing committee, which is mandated to take out insurance for the games. In that way, it's straightforward, he says. But of course, in other ways, it's not straightforward because it's not simply a contract between the International Olympic Committee and the host organizing. We have a sponsorship contract, we have broadcasting, we have hospitality, we have a range of contractual web of liabilities that are in place here. It's a huge contractual issue and would have huge insurance ramifications if it were to not to go ahead. According to a Reuters report from January, insurers are facing a $2 or $3 billion loss if the Olympics are cancelled, amounting to the largest ever claim in the global event cancellation market. And for organizers, the financial impact of canceling the games, even with insurance payout, could be considerable given that close to 75% of the IOC's total funding comes from broadcasting rights. The International Olympic Committee, while it is now a very rich organization, its wealth is predicated on its primary asset, which is hosting the games, Anderson explains. Therefore, not to have the game and the knock-on effect that has for sponsorship for broadcasting would be huge. It would be difficult to measure that, but I think you could comfortably say that insurance alone would not cover it in terms of reputation and economic damage. What about the athletes? Arguably, it would be the athletes who miss out most from a cancelled Olympics. Speaking to CNN Sport 2 last week, World Athletics President Sepp Coe said that 70% of those chasing Olympic participation are only going to have one chance to compete at what is likely to be the pinnacle of their sporting careers. To cancel the games, Coe said, would be to discard the generation of athletes who have spent over half their young lives in pursuit for this one moment. The other issue when it comes to athletics is that countries around the world are at different stages of pandemic recovery and have varied access to vaccines, although Coe said he thinks the bulk of the world will be at the games. With the public pressure to cancel the games mounting, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said last week that he has never put the Olympics as a priority. My priority has been to protect the lives and health of the Japanese population. We must first prevent the spread of the virus, he said. The Olympics have been cancelled on 3 previous occasions in 1916, 1940, and 1944, each time because of world wars.